Welcome to this video, round 5 of the World Championship match between defending world champion Magnus Carlsen and challenger Vichy Anand. We have reversed roles compared to 2013. Yeah, round 5. Yeah, unfortunately I didn't do any coverage of round 2, 3 and 4 due to my illness break. But I'm going to continue now, of course, starting with game 5. I'm thinking if I should do something about game 2, 3 and 4 as well. Not sure about it. I mean, those have been covered by now and there's really not that much to add, I guess, to things that already have been said in other videos. So I'm just going to continue with the match as it goes along. This day had round 5. Let's kick this off. I actually have the position on the board already for move 3, I see. Yeah, this is in fact Carlsen's deviation from the round 3 game. We had the same moves at the beginning, but now in game 3 Carlsen played the Queen's Gambit declined with d5 and lost a pretty drastic game in this line. Quite to my amazement, because not knowing this specific line when you play this opening is really embarrassing, especially for any grandmaster even, but for a world champion. Okay, let's not get into that. In this game today he however played the move b6, the Queen's Indian defense. Probably this is more, if you want to call it like that, Carlsen's main repertoire. But he's switching around all the time to dodge preparation by the opponent, so it's hard to really assign any line to him as the main line. Yeah, the Queen's Indian. What has Anand prepared? Yeah, he played g3. g3 is the main move in the Queen's Indian, basically since this opening is existing. For good reason. Yeah, it's always a good idea to get a counter fianchetto going if black intends to fianchetto on b7. And there have been some recent discoveries in recent years, especially things like bishop a6, queen c2 was really a revelation that this is a good line for white, or let's say a promising dangerous line. Not clear that it really gives white anything, but it's it really helped to give white more resources in key lines. What did Carlsen do? Carlsen played now bishop b4 check. This is not a very common move at this particular moment. The check, however, is very common. I mean, we have openings like the Bogo Indian, where I'm writing this book. We have bishop b4 checks in all shapes and sizes in the Queen's Indian and Queen's Gambit complex. Here's, however, a pretty uncommon situation to play it. Not a bad situation, mind you, but it's not very common. Bishop d2 and bishop back to e7. Yeah, this is the idea very often of this check. By provoking bishop d2, black is in a way, he's losing a move. He could have played bishop b7 immediately, but his idea is that this bishop is not so well placed on d2. In some closed type of positions, the fianchetto actually is the best situation for this bishop. On b2 would be the best square, so not so easy from d2. And another idea, and this is less obvious, is that it breaks the support of the queen to d4 and to d5. So a push d4, d5, for example, now is less likely to happen when the queen is not supporting this. All in all, very often this check is something that black can consider. Anand now played knight to c3. Bishop g2 is the main alternative. The difference is that after bishop g2, here black can start with a quick c6 and play d5 next move. Yeah, something like this. Black gets sufficient control over e4 so that white cannot play e4. This position, in fact, can easily be classified as a Catalan opening. not a Queen's Indian. It can easily arise from the pure Catalan move order d4, knight f6, c4, e6, g3, bishop b4 check. It's a fundamental decision here for white. Do you want to allow black to play d5, thus preventing e4, or do you want to get in or try to get in e4 yourself? And Anand tried to get in e4 himself. Knight c3, bishop b7, bishop g2, and now Carlsen played the move c6. Yeah, that's an interesting way to play. This whole line is totally forgotten, but it is quite a funny coincidence. While you only see a couple of games in the database, if you look at this, I have some experience myself, because this is a line that I actually played as black in the mid-90s. It's been ages, but I remember that I had some games with that. And back then they also played e4. Yeah, c6 is basically saying, okay, I'm going to play d5 next move, and then it's not so clear that your knight on c3 and your bishop on d2 is really well placed. You better play e4 now, yeah? And white should play e4, as Anand did. And then d5. This was black's idea. Yeah, he sort of gives white the opportunity to put those pawns in the center, and then with d5, he starts concrete counterplay here. Yeah, back then when I played this, like in 1996, 1997, this is about this time, around then the main line was c takes d5, c takes d5, e5, knight e4. And this I've always liked for black. I mean, always. Back then I found it interesting putting this knight on e4, giving it a very nice position here. But on the other hand, it is a position where white enjoys a space advantage, definitely, with d4, e5. And long term, sometimes even an attack on the king side is possible. Of course, the bishop on g2 is not ideal for that, but very often white can regroup it like that. Yeah, this would have been an interesting alternative, and certainly an interesting middle game. But Anand played differently. It seems that he had, yeah, maybe not anticipated, but it was part of his general preparation. Probably not for this game, but his general preparation. He took with the e-pawn, c takes d, and knight e5. Also interesting. White is, by exchanging with the e-pawn on d5, opening up the long diagonal, and he's got some pressure now on the center. C takes, the c-pawn, the knight, the bishop, there's lots of pressure there. And in fact, the pressure is so substantial that the next couple of moves are pretty much forced. Black castles, there's also queen a4 that he had to worry about, so castling is really mandatory. Castles, and knight c6. Yeah, knight c6 now initiates a long forced sequence. It attacks the d4 pawn. And note that this is one point of the bishop being on d2. Yeah, it's now an attack on d4. Yeah, what should white do? The problem is for white, or let's say one thing he has to look out for is that in a possible IQP position, his pieces are not so active. Yeah, he's very unlikely to get any kingside play or get d4, d5 going. He should stay active all the time. So something like, let's say, taking here and then just taking here. This is just excellent for black. Yeah, here the pawn will get into trouble in the long run. White has to stay active, and what Anand played, I think, is just a good continuation that keeps a little bit of an advantage for white. He took on d5 with the pawn directly. Also there is bishop f4 that also just make quite some sense. But c5 is good. Carlsen now took on e5 with the knight. I think this is the best move. Taking on d5 with the knight, which is also quite obvious, let's say, might be answered by the capture and queen a4. And here white enjoys a slight advantage, I'd say. Yeah, it's just a case where this bishop is more active than this bishop on b7. And let's say after a capture and white takes with the pawn, the d5 pawn really might get into trouble in the long run. Also, this is quite strong on e5. Yeah, I think this is something that black should avoid. So I think his move was better. Carlsen just took on e5 here. Knight takes e5. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, and now a very important moment actually, because this is a case where a quick move that is not really to the point can lead to absolutely nothing. If white now routinely recaptures after knight takes d5, and let's say something like that, we get to a situation where, yeah, white is even slightly, very slightly worse. Okay, he should never lose, but this is just not very nice. Yeah, this is bishop looking at e5. It should be a draw, but it's a very, very unattractive prospect for white. This simple recapture is not really good. So let's go back. What to do instead? Anand now played the move d6. Technically a novelty, but it's really the only move that gives white anything. And I understand that it looks very confusing maybe at first. It's something that maybe you should take a moment of time to understand. Yeah, white is not recapturing but putting out d6, and here we have a situation where, quite funny enough, like 3 pieces are hanging: e5, e7, b7, and very often we, as white, we can take things with a tempo. Carlsen played basically the only move. He played knight to c6. But just for example, if instead there is something like bishop g2, white takes on e7, and then on e5. And now it's quite funny, it's equal material, but it's a double attack on bishop and knight, so that bishop f1 takes is forced. And here we have a typical situation. White has 2 minor pieces against rook and pawn, and here the minor pieces have good positions. On c3 the bishop will come to e3 probably, and then something like this might lead to pressure on the queen side. Here white is just better. So there are many ways for black to lose material with bad play. What Carlsen played is simply the best continuation. He went knight c6, and now white has to get his piece back. d7, queen e7. Yeah, and now white now really only has one continuation. It is very forced now. The pawn here on d4 can easily become weak. If white plays slow moves, let's say this move, yeah, like bishop e3, black will put something here, one of the rooks, and all of a sudden this pressure gets serious, and white cannot easily push d5. This is controlled. So he shouldn't play such a slow move. Bishop g5 is by far the best move. Yeah, setting up this pin and directly threatening to push d5. Yeah, and the next moves are again pretty much forced. h6, you need to get rid of this pin, definitely. d5, counter attack. Knight a5. Yeah, not nice, but probably necessary. Takes. And takes on e6. Very natural moves. Queen takes, rook e1, queen f6. All this is fairly natural and almost forced. Yeah, what about this situation? Is it totally equal? Nah, it's not. Because of this knight on a5. The knight on a5 is really Bragg's problem. The whole structure is of course totally symmetrical, 5 against 5 pawns, and also symmetry in case of the wing distribution, like 2 against 2 and 3 against 3. This really points to a draw. But there is one difficult problem: the knight, especially as white now played knight d5, which is strong. Yeah, here the capture on b2 for black is probably not advisable. He can take it, but something like this is a problem. The queen does not have any squares, really. can easily get trapped. Something like this is quite logical, and now white can play something like that, getting 2 minor pieces for the rook. Yeah, this is a long line after queen takes b2, but it is pretty much forced. Very difficult to deviate from that. I think queen takes b2 is simply not good. And what Carlsen played, and played this relatively quickly, is better. He took on d5, just hacked this knight off. Bishop takes, rook d8 for a pin. Pin on the queen. Yeah, we have a pretty nice situation here. Bishop on d5 against the bad knight on a5. Yeah, black here has to be very, very careful to not fall into a situation where he's suffering with the worst minor piece, especially considering that the bishop here on d5 is also looking at some critical pawns and points like f7. Yeah, very often this bishop in combination to something coming on the 7th will be very, very problematic. Yeah, but let's have a look at this in concrete terms. It is white's move, Anand's move, and I think he played the best move. He played queen to f3. It is almost impossible to get anything going without queen f3. You're in a pin, or you were in a pin on the d file, and you have to make sure this pin is lifted. So queen f3 is strong. Yeah, here's an interesting moment, because Carlsen now has a fundamental decision, and I really, it's hard for me to tell here what is better. He decided to capture on b2, and after that, I think he is definitely suffering a bit. But I think he also suffers in the other continuation. Of course, the alternative was to directly trade on f3 and now try to play this position as black. It's still this problem of this knight on a5 against the bishop. It is, if this knight, let's say, would be on f6, there is really nothing happening. Yeah, white is still a little bit better, but difficult to imagine that there's something happening. But with the knight on a5, yeah, I think something like rook e8 is probably necessary. And from here, yeah, it will come to a situation where I just want to put the general structure on the board. We have the straight, maybe rook c1, intending rook c7, and then rook e7. This kind of situation. And again, note this knight can only go to b7. Yeah? And this is not fun at all for black to play. I completely understand why Carlsen didn't do it. I think they asked him in the press conference, and he said that this type of position is just a torture to play. That's true. I think, yeah, maybe his move was better, but I'm not sure. It is not really great in any case. We can go back and compare. He took on b2, after which Anand played rook a to d1. Yeah, rook a to d1 is strong. It intends to play rook e7. It wasn't possible immediately because the rook on a1 was just hanging. So rook a d1 prepares this rook e7 move. And here, yeah, rook e7 is really a problem. I think what Carlsen played is right. He played queen f6, getting rid of queens at least, so that there is some pressure of, yeah, I think something like, let's say you play a move like that, then rook e7. It's, yeah, that's not good. I think queen f6 is logical, really. Yeah, this was played. Anand exchanged and played rook e7. Yeah, now king g7. That's very, very normal. And here we come to an interesting situation. Here Anand took on a7, which is not a bad move, yeah. But it is still interesting if you, in this position, maybe should try to keep a little bit more tension. The issue is that after the capture, I can put it on the board. Carlsen could play knight, was able to play knight c6 and get the knight back from the edge of the board. An interesting alternative here was maybe rook to c7 that looks at all the critical squares of the knight so that it can definitely not move. And I'm not totally sure how black should defend now. I think here white really has a nice pressure. Maybe this move, intending rook d8, it's something that white needs to react to. He cannot just play something like that. I mean, this is just a check, and afterwards you will lose material. So after rook to d6, I think white probably will move the bishop to f3. Takes. And now we see here that black has a hard time to keep any of his pawns here anyway. Yeah, note that this is still possible, and the knight is totally dominated. Yeah, maybe something like this. Let's say a6. This is not forced, but just would want to put it on the board. What might happen? This kind of thing. Yeah, black now he has returned a pawn, but with this situation, at least he's breaking this diagonal. Rook a7, rook c5, and here white is just better. Yeah, he's better and he can continue to press. If it is enough for a win, questionable. Maybe with perfect defense, black will hold, but it's not much fun. I think that rook c7 was maybe, if we go back here move by move, that rook c7 was maybe a little bit tougher. But okay, Anand's move also preserves an edge. Rook a7, knight c6. And yeah, here maybe there's a second situation where you could try to improve. What's clear is that Anand's move, he played rook b7, that this is a direct draw. After rook b7, the game is basically over. But he could have played rook a4, which was interesting, trying to switch over here. And I still believe that this should preserve an edge for white. I mean, and it's not much fun to play. I think maybe like this, b5, check, king g2, yeah, and probably we will get something like this, rook to d6, again one trade, and then, I mean, a position like that. It is clear that black has improved a little bit, because he's not, yeah, he does not have to suffer with the rook on the 7th from white, or a direct pressure on f7, but still, this is a worse structure. And the bishop is still the more dangerous piece, so white can definitely continue in this position and try to press. I'm very sure that this is a position that Magnus as white would love to play for ages. So I'm not quite sure why Anand avoided that, or what he did not like about rook a4. I still think that he can press there with very little risk. And I mean, very little risk is putting it mildly. White risks nothing. So I'm a bit surprised that he didn't do that. He just played rook b7, and now after knight b4 it is fairly simple. The bishop now has to move, and after the trade the a2 pawn is directly falling, which means a trade from a against b pawn, and this is now totally equal. Black will get the knight over with f5. He even gets in knight to e4. And here they could have agreed to a draw, but they put some more moves on the board to really get it to a total draw. Yeah, and here, and Anand, I think, didn't play this anymore, but it's of course dead equal. Yeah, so an interesting game that is slightly mysterious, as near the end I think Anand, without any big, yeah, there was no risk involved. It's always a question: should you play for a win, or try harder to try to win the game? It's really a question of risk taking. But here there is no risk in playing rook c7, or even later with rook a4. It's even equal material. So it's slightly mysterious why he didn't go for that. I think it was a chance to exert some more pressure on Carlsen and sort of torture him a little bit more with a long game. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why Anand didn't do that. I think the initiative in the match is on his side now anyway after the win in round 3, and trying to push a little harder maybe was an interesting or was something to try. It's hard to say. Okay, the match now continues. It continues tomorrow on the 15th with Carlsen having white, and then after rest day, Carlsen again has the white pieces. This is this little color change in the middle of the match. And those two white games, of course, are very important. This is white game 3 and white game 4. And if Anand manages to not lose one of those games, I think he's in good shape. Yeah, in the remaining 5 games, he will have 3 whites, and with white, he got some pressure here, and he won game 3, so he can be confident there. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the coverage for this game. I'll be back tomorrow with game 6. Then we will have the world champion playing white, and okay, maybe let's see some other Sicilian probably. Okay, thanks for watching.